Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you for joining us today here at Skolkovo. My name indeed is Micko Hipponen, and I have been working with computer security for 24 years now. 24 years of fighting online criminals, 24 years of defending our online security, and 24 years trying to defend our privacy. And these are different problems. The problem of security and the problem of privacy are totally different problems. And in many ways, we might have already lost the fight for our online privacy. What I mean by that is that we already have a whole generation of internet users who don't remember the time before Google and Wikipedia and all these online services, and who have lived all their lives believing that the way we have to pay for online content is with our privacy and with our data. We pay for services like Google and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter with our privacy and with our data. We can't pay for those services with money even if we wanted to. And it's easy to see how profitable these privacy breaching businesses are by just looking at their revenues and looking at their profits. So maybe we've already lost the war on privacy. Maybe we already lost the fight for preserving our privacy online. But we still have a fight going on regarding our security. In many ways, our security is getting better. If we look at the level of security you have built in to your devices today and compare to where we were 10 years ago, there's a massive difference. If we look at, for example, Windows-based devices, and you look at the latest 64-bit version of Windows 10, and you compare it to, I don't know, Windows XP Service Pack 2, it really is like night and day. Even more importantly, if you look at the new devices that have become commonplace, like iPads, the security level built into our iPads is clearly superior to the level of security we have on our computers. Why? Because they are restrictive devices. I'm a programmer. I can program my computer. Then I can take that program and give it to anyone else and they can run it on their computer. But I cannot program my iPad. I'm a programmer and I cannot program my iPad. The only way I can program my iPad is that I write the program, then I send my program to Apple. And then Apple has to approve it. And once and if Apple approves it, then I can run it. And that's the same restrictive model as we have on our PlayStations, basically. So it's a very restrictive model, but it does give better security. As always, security is a trade-off. We're trading something away and we get something in exchange. But if I've learned anything over the last 24 years, I've learned that we have to understand our enemy. We have to understand where the attacks are coming from if we want to be able to provide solutions for them. If we don't understand who we are actually fighting, we have no hope in trying to build defenses at all. So let's group the attackers into different groups. What do we have? Well, first of all, among the different hackers, we have hackers like these guys. That's Charlie Miller, that's Chris Walasek. They are hackers, but they are the good kind of hackers. The kind of hackers who break security to improve security. Charlie and Chris made the news this summer because they were the guys who created the infamous Chrysler Jeep hack by hacking a car. And they did that to improve the security of car computers. And that's exactly what they did. Chrysler shipped a patch which updated the car computers in their Jeeps, making them much more secure as a direct result of the hack that they did. So they are hackers, but they are the good kind of hackers. Then we have group number 2, hacktivists. These guys actually break the law. But they don't break the law to get something for themselves. They hack for something they believe to be a higher cause. They hack to protest. They hack for a political motive. And that makes them different from group number 3, criminals. Online hackers who hack to make money, who hack to steal. And this is the largest group. Our labs at F-Secure receive hundreds of thousands of samples to be analyzed every single day. And we estimate that over 95% of those are coming from this group, coming from online criminals who use banking Trojans, keyloggers, ransom Trojans, and so on to make millions with their malware. Then we have group number 4, governments. Malware written and deployed by governments, including law enforcement agencies, intelligence agencies, and militaries. The very first governmental malware case that I worked with was 12 years ago, in 2003. Since then, we have seen governmental malware that we link to governments of China, United States, Israel, United Kingdom, India, Pakistan, North Korea, Iran, and yes, Russia. This has become a standard method of influence used by various governments around the world. And that leaves us with the last group. And that last group is extremists or terrorists. Especially Islamic State worries us in this area, because they are the only extremist group which has a credible offensive cyber capability. But we haven't yet seen a cyber terror attack. But it's clear that this situation isn't getting better. It's clear that this situation is getting worse. So we have a wide range of attackers, and it's important to understand that not all of these attackers are after all organizations. So your organization can do threat assessments to figure out which one of these is relevant to you. And then you can use your limited resources and your limited budgets in the right place. And we have seen over the last year many attacks which don't actually fit into any of these categories very well. So for example, pretty much exactly a year ago, we saw the Sony Pictures hack, which was a revenge for a movie released by Sony Pictures. A year before that, we saw the massive destructive attack against Saudi Aramco. And both Sony Pictures and Saudi Aramco attacks are important because they were destructive. In both of these cases, the attacker tried to delete as much information as possible. In the case of Saudi Aramco, which is the largest company on the planet, the attacker destroyed data from over 30,000 workstations and servers. And destructive attacks are rare. Destructive attacks used to be the norm. In the 1990s, we would regularly see attacks which were formatting hard drives and deleting files. But as money-making attacks became the biggest problem, these destructive attacks almost disappeared. So in that sense, it's surprising to see examples like these two. And these two are actually a little bit similar to what we saw earlier this year with the Ashley Madison hack, which is also interesting because the attacker in Ashley Madison wasn't trying to make money. Whoever hacked Ashley Madison wanted to destroy the company. They stole the customer database of Ashley Madison and threatened to expose the customer list of 36 million customers unless Ashley Madison shuts down. And since they didn't shut down, the attacker did exactly what he was threatening to do and published the 36 million customer list. Now, I told you that money-making attacks are the biggest problem. Money-making attacks like this. This is crypto wall, malware, ransom Trojan, and also software made right here in Russia. Crypto wall is a Russian crime gang, and they've made tons of money with their ransom Trojans, which will infect your Windows system as you visit websites which have exploits put on them or open up email attachments. Then the Trojan will encrypt all the files on your computer using RSA 2048 encryption, and then it will demand a payment from you in order to get your files back. Crypto war checks the country before it does the damage. And if your country code of your Windows computer is in Russia, it doesn't do this. So Russian victims are very rare, but victims everywhere around the world are very common. And the way these attackers collect the ransom is through Bitcoin, the virtual payments. Bitcoin payments are anonymous, so we don't actually know who the attackers are, but we can monitor the fund transfers, so we know how much money they are making. And over the last 3 years, the crypto wall gang has collected more than $300 million in ransom. $300 million. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not recommending this line of business to anybody. No. Don't start a startup doing ransom Trojans. That's not the message, because this is criminal and evil. But the amount of money they make is staggering. And one of the reasons why people keep paying the ransom is that if you actually pay the ransom, if you actually pay it, they will deliver you a program which will actually give you your files back. So, at least, they are honest criminals. They are honest criminals because they need a good reputation. They need a good reputation because they know that all the victims will try finding alternative solutions, and they will Google for help. And when they Google for solutions, they will find earlier victims who will tell that, yeah, I was infected with this as well. I couldn't find any way to get my files back, but when I paid the ransom, it worked. Yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend. And that's why people keep paying, because it actually works. And it's also important to notice that they don't just encrypt the files on your hard drive. If you are a corporate user, they're going to encrypt all the files in your local area network and on your file shares and in your cloud storages. So if you have one employee get infected with this, it's going to encrypt as much data inside your organization as possible. And since the money they make is so good, there's actually quite a bit of competition in this area. So crypto wall is probably the biggest of these ransom Trojan gangs, but they are competing with crypto defense, crypto locker, Tesla Crypt, Urusui, Reveton, and on and on. There are dozens of different ransom Trojan families which are all trying to compete with each other to try to reach their victims before anyone else reaches them, and then collect ransoms from those victims so that the victims can get their own files back. So I mentioned extremists. One thing that I always wonder when I look at pictures and videos of the Islamic State is that they're always driving the same car. It's always a Toyota. Always a Toyota Hilux. Sometimes I wonder if Toyota is sponsoring these guys. But this was interesting because last month I noticed a posting on a website run by the government of Canada. Government of Canada had put out a public tender for security companies to provide them with technology which would enable the Canadian military to hack cars. The Canadian military wants to hack cars. What kind of cars? Well, they don't actually mention the details. They say that the car they want to hack is a 2015 pickup truck, but they refuse to name the maker and the model of the truck. I can tell you, it's a Toyota. They want to hack the Islamic State cars, which is interesting, which is pretty creative. Full points to government of Canada for thinking outside of the box. So governments have become interested, more and more interested in this kind of capability, in the capability of being able to launch attacks, being able to develop malware, being able to develop and launch surveillance attacks and spying attacks and espionage attacks. Now, I said that the very first time we worked with a governmental malware case was 12 years ago, in 2003. I remember that case very well. That case was from these guys, from the government of China, from Chinese military, the PLA. And that attack targeted a defense contractor company in Europe. And the case started by that company sending us a sample for analysis. We would receive samples from that company to be analyzed regularly, but in this case, it was a little bit unusual sample because it wasn't a program, it was not an executable, it was a Word file, a Word document. Even more interestingly, at the time, well, this was 12 years ago, so at the time, we would regularly see these email worms and web worms, which would go around the world very quickly, which means when we get the first sample of a new piece of malware, we very quickly get more samples from other customers, from everywhere around the world. But in this case, we got no samples from anywhere else. Only this one company was infected with this malware. In fact, only one employee got infected with the malware. And then we spoke with the employee. He turned out to be a management team member, a C-level executive for the company. And he had become infected after receiving an email. And the email came from one of their customers. It was actually sent by an employee of one of their customers that he knew. Well, the email was fake. It wasn't actually sent by the customer at all. And the Word document which was attached to the file actually contained an exploit. So this was all a carefully planned, targeted attack where the attacker knew who was the right person to infect in the organization to gain access to the information that they wanted to steal. And we are still seeing attacks like that today. We are still seeing attacks like that in 2015. Attacks where a single employee receives an email sent by someone they know and trust, which contains a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF file attached to it. And when they open the file, it looks perfectly normal, but it's not normal. It contains an exploit. And the whole reason for doing all of this is that outsiders want to gain access to the critical data inside your organization. Today we've heard a lot of talk about IoT, connected devices, and ICS, industrial control systems. And this is an important topic to talk about. Our job is to secure computers. We work with computer security, so our job is to secure computers. Well, we were wrong. That's not our job. That's not our job at all. Why? Because the lights are on in this building because of computers and software running at the local power plant here in Moscow. There's water coming out of the taps because of computers and software at the local water plant. And as we're going to have lunch later today, part of that lunch was prepared in a food processing plant, which is being run by computers and software. So we are not here to secure computers. We are here to secure the whole society, because the whole society runs on top of computers. That's what we are doing. That's how we should be thinking about this. And the traditional way of protecting industrial control systems and plant computers was to keep them disconnected, keep them offline. And that actually works. If you are able to keep them offline, it's actually fairly efficient. But it turns out to be surprisingly hard to keep your ICS systems offline. How do we know? Well, we know because we regularly scan the whole internet. And what we find connected to the internet scares me. Because when we scan the internet, we find things like these. That's a power generator, or actually the control panel for a power generator, complete with a user interface. You can press these buttons to turn the engine on or off. And this was connected directly to the internet. It was connected to the internet with remote control enabled, with no username and password. Which means anybody of you can connect to this IP address and control this engine. And this is a bad idea. Like, don't connect your power generators to the internet without a password. In fact, don't connect them to the internet at all. Then we found this. This is the control panel for a swimming pool. For a swimming pool in a university in Canada. And it is connected to the internet with remote control enabled, with no username and password. Which means anybody can connect to it and press these buttons, including this button, which turns on the acid pump. So you can actually pump acid into a swimming pool in Canada, remotely over the internet. I mean, you can do it. All you have to do is to connect this IP address and click the button. And this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. Then we found this. That's a car washing station at some gas station in the United States. And that's connected to the internet with no password. Then we found this. That's the point of sales terminal for a Subway restaurant somewhere in Portugal. And that's connected to the internet with no username and password. This is a bad idea. And then we found these. These, my friends, are hospital beds. 16 hospital beds. The ones with charge on them have a patient on the bed. This patient isn't doing too well. And these are connected to the internet. And they have remote control enabled with no username and password. And this is a bad, bad idea. And what's even worse? Well, then we find people's homes. This is somebody's home in Germany. And the remote control panel for his home is online with no username and password, which means I can turn his lights on and off. I can turn his alarm system off. What's worse? Well, he also has his security cameras online. So I can watch his house, including his bedroom. And this is a bad idea. It's a bad idea. So, IoT, Internet of Things. You can't spell idiot without IoT. How do we fix this? Well, it's more challenging than we think, because there are so many different devices to fix. For example, this. That's a water kettle, a water heater. You put in water, you turn it on, it boils the water. But it's an IoT kettle, so it's actually going to send a message to your smartphone when the water is boiling. All right? And I know what you're thinking. Even if that can be hacked, so what? It's just a water kettle. Even if it's hacked, who cares? Well, the problem with this water kettle is that it has a vulnerability which will leak the password to the wireless network. So the attackers are not interested in hacking this device. They are interested in your network. And this provides them with a vector to gain access to your network. So if you have an employee in your office who has brought one of these to your office and connected it to your private Wi-Fi network, now the attackers can breach your corporate Wi-Fi network through a Wi-Fi kettle. And it's quite obvious that you will never ever be able to run an antivirus on a kettle, or an antivirus on your toaster, or an antivirus on your washing machine. I mean, that's not going to happen. And the reason why these devices have vulnerabilities is that it's not really a selling point for these appliances to have cybersecurity. The most important selling point for appliances like these is price. And this means that the vendors who build these IoT appliances will invest the minimum amount possible into the cybersecurity part of their product, because that's not a selling point. Price is the selling point. So we will continue to have vulnerabilities in these devices. We've been actually thinking about this problem for quite a while. So we released last month what we believe is our solution for this problem. It looks like this. It's a box that you put in your home. Sits next to your cable modem or DSL modem, and it creates a secure Wi-Fi network. And then you connect your televisions and PlayStations and your toasters into the network built by this device. And it's going to secure it automatically. So you don't need to run an antivirus on your toaster. It's enough to connect it to a secure network. Maybe these kind of solutions are the ones we need if we want to be able to secure our Internet of Things. So it's been a pretty wild ride over the last 24 years. The enemy has changed over and over and over again, and it will continue to change. But we have to understand who are the most relevant risks for our organizations. Who are the attackers? What do they want? How do they operate? Because then, and only then, we can start defending effectively against them. And we have to start thinking about computer security differently. Computer security is not about securing computers. Computer security is about securing toasters, factories, the whole society. That's what it's about. Thank you very much.
Принцип работы устройства, которое вы разработали, этого контейнера на последней фотографии.
So the F-Secure Sense box replaces your existing Wi-Fi network or complements your existing Wi-Fi network with network built by our system where we have security built in. So it's automatically monitoring the network traffic, removing malicious traffic, removing also unauthorized tracking. So for example, many televisions today will monitor which TV programs you watch, and it will send that away. And you don't really want that. So we actually block that kind of tracking as well. It also has a built-in VPN, which means we will encrypt all of your traffic automatically. And since a VPN allows you to move your physical endpoint, it also allows you to change the location where your devices think they are. So for example, on your TV, you can change your location to be, instead of Russia, in United States, and then you can watch Netflix from USA. Or you can change your TV to be in UK, and you can watch BBC. So you get completely new kinds of benefits when you connect to a secured Wi-Fi network like the one built by our Sense product. The product isn't actually out yet. We'll start shipping in March.
Спасибо большое. Коллеги, прошу задавать вопросы.
Не могли бы вы прокомментировать мой вопрос, который я задавал, когда сидели вы здесь в аудитории вместе? То есть, что вы думаете о расширении или не расширении гэпа между очень быстро растущими угрозами и нашей возможностью их защищать? И на что можно надеяться в будущем?
Well, like I said, computer security is getting better. The last 10 years has seen massive improvements in computer security and completely new kinds of devices. So if we would still have the enemy that we were fighting 10 years ago, we would be in great shape. We would be in great shape. We would easily be able to handle the attacks from 10 years ago with today's technology. Unfortunately, we don't have that enemy anymore. The enemy is changing all the time, and right now it seems that we are losing with the current technology that we have. So one idea that we have been building on over the last 2 years or so is what we call digital judo. Judo, like the martial arts. And those of you who have done martial arts like judo or karate, you know about moves where you use your attacker's power and your attacker's speed and momentum against the attacker himself. And there are ways of doing this in the online world as well. So for example, we have built solutions to fight the most complicated, the hardest possible malware on the planet. The biggest nation-state attacks that we could imagine, with attacks done with multi-million-dollar budgets. And it seems almost hopeless to defend against those, but with these judo techniques, we can actually do that. For example, with reputation-based systems that are able to block malware, not based on that we know what it is, but based on the uniqueness of the code they are executing. And that's a way of blocking attacks in a judo-like fashion.
Коллеги,
Самофалов Андрей, Мегакар. My questions. How could your security box can be able for technologies connecting cars and smart vehicles? Thank you very much.
This box that we're starting shipping in March is for securing your home devices. It's not supposed to be securing things on the move, like planes or cars or trains, or factories for that matter. It's for your home appliances. Solutions for securing our cars, I don't think anybody has very good solutions at the moment. And the real challenge in the vehicle industry is that vehicle industry has decades and decades of experience in safety, traditional safety, but they don't really have experience in security, especially cyber security. So what they really need is security engineering experience. And that's a hard thing to build from scratch. And that's what all car companies are trying to do right now. Our cars have become data centers on 4 wheels. But the technology that secures those data centers isn't yet up to date. And there's still a lot of work to be done. And we, for once, we don't have a solution for that. I hope someone else will build that.
Коллеги, последний вопрос.
Валерий Коржов, журнал «Коннект». Если вернуться к дискуссии, которая была в начале про защиту промышленных систем, то кто, по вашему мнению, должен защищать, обеспечивать безопасность промышленных систем? Сами пользователи, которые ее эксплуатируют, производители, которые предоставляют оборудование, производители программ, систем защиты или, например, государство. Вот кто, по вашему мнению, должен это дело обеспечивать?
The responsibility ultimately is with the vendors who build the PLC devices or the programmable logical controllers that actually run all the factories everywhere around the world. And there's only a handful of large vendors in that space, the 2 largest being Siemens and Honeywell. And they are taking this very, very seriously. Siemens systems were the ones which were taken over with the infamous Stuxnet malware. And since then, Siemens has put millions and millions into developing better security for their PLCs. The problem is that these PLCs sit in factories much, much longer times than any other devices that we use for computing. The life cycle of one PLC in factory might be 25 years, might be 35 years. So even if you have perfect security in the devices you buy today, it's still going to take 25 years until we have replaced all the vulnerable devices. And we cannot wait 25 years. And in that sense, the responsibility has to be somewhere else as well. And I think governments should take action and regulate critical infrastructure vendors to secure their systems, even if it's expensive, even if they wouldn't want to do it, but by regulation they can mandate them to do it. Not all the factories, but the critical ones. You know, power distribution, water distribution, stuff like that. So there are already governments doing that, and regulation Nobody likes it, but it seems to work in this particular space. Thank you very much.